Welcome to another session of Clarity Digital Pod. Today, I'm joined by analytics expert Eric Bode. I've had the pleasure of working with Eric in the past and was impressed by his deep knowledge and practical approach to web analytics. So I invited him to share his take on the current state of web analytics. Let's get into it.
Hey Eric, how's it going today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Al?
I'm doing good. Long time no see. We used to work together on a joint project a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, I was with Common Spirit Health and I was consultant doing some analytics work for them.
Yeah, same here. I was doing some SEO work for them. It's good to see you again. Thank you for joining our little podcast. I know you, but for our audience, if you don't mind introducing yourself, give a little bit of background about your professional experience, that would be great.
Yeah, so I'm Eric Bode and I have about 20 years of SEO, SEM experience at various companies. And I have about 6, 7 years of analytics experience doing full migrations and then insights and conversion optimization work.
That's awesome. It's interesting. A lot of us SEOs, especially the technical SEOs, they get into analytics. Like if they're like done with SEO and they want to move on. What was your story? Like, how did you go from SEO and SEM to analytics?
I think that was pretty much how you described. I was pretty well done with SEO and I had done some analytics adjacent projects. The company had been bought out and I wanted to do something new and something that would challenge me some more.
Yeah, SEO people tend to either go on the analytics side or the content side, and depending how technical you are. And my take is that more technical SEOs tend to gravitate toward the data analytics side. And because it's not, while it seems complicated for many average marketers, if you can do technical SEO, analytics is a walk in the park. Do you agree with that, or maybe some of that?
Yeah, I think it gives you a good tool set to be able
Yeah.
to learn the analytics side, especially behind what's happening in the browser and what happens in the background.
Yeah, that's great. So you've been doing this full time for 6 or 7 years. Where do you see what's the state of marketing analytics today in the world of GA4 and all these new analytics platforms coming up and AI? Where do you see the state of analytics as of today?
I think the state analytics is, pretty good actually. We're seeing some new tools come up and mature, especially with GA4 not being quite as good as everyone had hoped it would be. Amplitude seems to be pretty popular. The Piwik Pro seems to be growing a customer base as well. I think it's, pretty good and glad to see some new entrants into the marketplace.
I don't know if I could say this word because for YouTube, but I think Google shot themselves in the foot by coming up with GA4 because many analytics startups were just popped out of nowhere, and because of that, or many existing ones started getting life again, and it feels like Google does this with everything. They do really give you a really good product at the beginning, and then they take away things from you. I remember when Google Ads, where it used to be called AdWords, you could actually see your competitor, how much they were clicking on, how much they were paying, and you could get quite competitive. And now they're like, oh, let us figure that for you, machine learning, let us take everything away. And then when Google Analytics Universal came out, they took all the SEO data away. They're like, oh, because we have secure search now, whatever, SSL. I'm like, okay, that's understandable, but you lost all keyword insights from organic. And now they did this, and it's just really hard to navigate. And if you really want some good data, you have to either export it to Excel and put in Looker Studio. Like, you can't just easily go see, hey, how much of your traffic was organic, how much this, how much that, and they're always redefining terms. And marketers need to focus more on marketing, not learning tools all the time. And I think Google is missing that message for whatever reason. And anyway, that's my opinion. I don't know if you agree with that or not. And I also think that they're also pushing their paid version of Google Analytics. That's why the free one's getting a little bit more complicated. But I don't think it's working out for them really well. I'm not too sure, but that's just a little bit of hypothesis, conspiracy theory type of thing.
Yeah, I don't think that what they're doing is working very well either. I think really what they're trying to do is push people to BigQuery and to use their BigQuery tool. But a lot of marketers don't really care about using BigQuery and don't really want to. That's more of a data engineering, data analyst geek out. You have a big data platform to use. Like I see Google really pushing towards BigQuery and to be able to get those insights that you used to get with Universal Analytics. I think one of the examples is the e-commerce metrics. So if you had implemented advanced e-commerce metrics are no longer there in Google and you really need to either create a ton of segments, which is not very efficient, or you need to use BigQuery to put together the data.
Yeah, and like you said, marketers, if they're not technical enough, that's just going to be over their head, and they shouldn't worry about that anyways. And then they have to hire a data scientist. And now I have a buddy who's a data scientist. He will not work for a cheap, right? So data scientists are expensive, and they should be, unless you are a business that can afford to hire someone with a very healthy six-figure salary and stuff like that. It's just not going to be worthwhile. And that's why I have seen the small, even medium-sized businesses moving toward other platforms. Talking about other platforms, do you know or recommend any as an alternative to GA4?
So I think it really depends on what your business is and what you're trying to accomplish. I think really for like media companies, Parsley is a really great analytics tool.
Parsley.
Because it allows you to segment your authors and let your authors see what their posts are doing and where the traffic's coming from, and really has a more author focused. Whereas a tool like Amplitude, which I really like as well, it's more of a product focus. So they really want you to do lots of custom events that are focused on improving your product and understanding how people are moving through your product and using it.
Yeah. And where does Microsoft Clarity fit in all this? Is it more of a user experience, user journey tool, or do you consider it to be a web analytics tool?
I would consider it to be more of a user journey experience tool.
Yeah, I have installed it on our websites. I haven't spent too much time. It's free, but I've been guilty of not spending enough time in it. I'm like, oh, it's free, I'm going to use it, but what good is it if you're not going to use the data? So I think there's an opportunity for Microsoft to take some of the market share away from Google as well if they were to expand that tool. Anyhow, so let's talk about AI in analytics. Where does AI fit in today's world of analytics, and maybe some hype versus reality?
So for AI, it's really in the beginning stages, and I see mainly as a tool to be able to help you do your job better and to be able to find those insights that are hidden within the data and to remove that noise for you. I view them mainly as like the computer was in the 1990s, where it's coming up, it's just starting out, but it has a lot of promise. I even see as AI grows, especially with AI agents, that they can replace the user interface. And so we would be asking an AI agent questions about conversion rates and where are we seeing conversion rate going down, which landing page, which channel, and then using that information to improve our marketing or our pages.
Yeah, I see that going that way too. But we also, if you're going to use the current state of AI like ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, you also have to be careful with the output that they have. I have noticed sometimes they make stuff up, and I've caught it a few times. I don't have an example in mind right now, but it just didn't. You have to be extremely careful. You want to be very specific. You don't want AI to do everything for you right now. You want to, just like the basic rules of data, your answer is as good as the question you ask. So you have to ask a very specific question for it to give you a very decent answer. If you just say, hey, analyze the data for me, you might just not get what accurate analysis, because as the name implies, generative AI generates stuff and sometimes we make things up, which they call hallucinations.
Yeah. So I feel that AI is good for basic questions and basic, like writing basic SQL queries and basic data analysis. But if you go into any deeper, if you are writing CTEs or subqueries, that it just really doesn't help you at all and actually sometimes can hinder what you're trying to do because they rearrange it and it's makes it more difficult.
Do you use any AI tools or agents right now to facilitate your work?
Not really. I've been using ChatGPT a little bit and then Microsoft Copilot because that's what I have available to me through my job. But that's about it. And it's more about kind of testing it out, seeing how it works. As we were talking about Google Analytics 4, I use BigQuery quite a bit and Snowflake. And the AI doesn't really have that context about what is in a GA4 events table or what is in our customer data tables. And without that context, it really can't give you a complicated query to extract that data that you're looking for.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought it up because different metrics in different platforms mean different things. For example, in Google Analytics 4, a session means completely different than a session in, let's say, HubSpot Analytics. Right now, we work with a B2B client. They have HubSpot. When the monthly report comes out, we give them two different reports. The sessions reported by HubSpot and the one reported by GA4, and they ask me which one is correct. I'm like, I don't know. The truth is somewhere in between. So do you have any feedback on situations like that? Do you have any recommendations that how should marketers go about metrics in situations like this to go about those metrics?
Yeah, so I think you're never going to be able to find two systems that agree with each other 100% of the time. And that's a challenge when we're talking about understanding how users are using different systems. So what I typically do is we get with the business and decide this is going to be our source of truth. This is what we're going to be using, and every other data source is a secondary data source, and it can inform and give us a directional idea of what's happening, but it's not going to give us the hard numbers. It's not going to tell us like exactly what's happening. So I think that is the best way to approach that, because that will allow you to use other systems and just not always going back and forth and saying, this system is giving me X number, this system is giving me Y number, and why don't they match? Because in my opinion, data analytics isn't about getting the systems to match 100%. It's about revealing those insights that can improve the business and drive more revenue. So that's the real goal of data analytics. It's not to validate that the system is 100% accurate. I think the most important thing is making sure that the trends match. And if the trends match, then we can just move on. And I think the other thing is making sure that the trends will match what the business is doing. So if the business is making a change for a banner or changing their form or changing a page, that the analytics reflects that change, right?
So that's awesome. So let's talk about KPIs, if you don't mind. What are some of the good KPIs? Let's just talk about a platform everybody knows, Google Analytics. What should marketers look for as KPIs? Because there's a lot of data there. There's a lot of events, and they used to call it conversions. Now they call it key events. What key events should marketers look at as to measure their campaign success?
Well, so the key events to look for is whatever makes your business money, right? So if you're a retailer and you make money off of purchases, then that's your key event, is the purchase event. If it is a lead gen business and you have several forms on your site that bring in customers and that you then nurture those customers, then that's the lead gen form fill is your key event. So in my opinion, it's whatever makes your business money.
So you go straight to wherever makes money, but how do you make up to that? Because I know a lot of activities we do, like creating content and whatnot, doesn't necessarily immediately lead up to making money, but it works in a larger customer journey. How do you measure those?
So I like creating funnels. So you have at the very top what your awareness is, and then drill down to where that specific conversion that you or key event that you have that drives you, makes you money. Along that way, it could be article views, it could be banner clicks, it could be emails that get sent out. But really, to me, it's all about that funnel and how does someone go from not knowing about your brand and your company to making key purchase. I think that also how you segment the data could have different funnels there as well. A new customer could
Yeah,
have very different behavior than an existing customer, or
right.
someone who comes to your site in desktop or a laptop has a very different experience than someone who comes in on a mobile device, phone,
Yeah,
tablet, things like that.
yeah.
So I think you got to identify where that funnel, how that funnel changes and how that user behavior changes. And that I think is very valuable information to your business, because then they can, target those types of customers and improve the funnel where there's friction. So like, why aren't we getting, new customers?
Really good info. What about now we're talking about funnels, and I'm going to ask you another geeky question, then we're going to go more toward like thought leadership type of things, topics. Attribution. Most marketers continue to struggle with attribution. What are some of your thoughts on attribution in general in analytics?
I think attribution really depends on your business type. There's really about maybe there's three maybe types of attribution, right? You have your last click where all the campaigns get attributed, last one, first click where all the campaigns get attributed to the first channel, and then either data driven or linear or regression type of model where the clicks gets pushed into all the different sessions, right? And so one might have 50%, the other might have 40%, and the other might have 10%.
Yeah.
Things like that. I think when you talk about attribution, you really want to understand what the business is coming from, and then see if there's any differences in the types of attribution. So I like to look at what is the first channel that comes in, and then how does that compare to the last channel that people buy from? Are there differences in behavior that we see? And that type of analysis is sometimes revealing, sometimes not. I've seen it just be the same, and it's, that's just what's happening, right?
Yeah. Good stuff. Awesome. Let's move toward more about creating a data-driven culture, like from a marketing, and not just marketing at an organization. Let's assume I'm an analytics person too. Where do we fit in? Where do the geeks, where do we fit in? Do we just pull data and create reports, or do we have a bigger role to play? Do we explain things? Do we teach things? Do we evangelize? Where do we fit in an organization? How do you go about it? Maybe that's a better question. How do you go about when you do consulting with other companies, or even at your full-time job? What do you do, and how do you articulate some of this data? How do you tell the story?
Yeah, I think we definitely have a larger role than just creating reports and looking at data. I think one of the really important roles that we have is to understand the customer behavior and then point out places that are either risks to the business, so things are not going well here, or places that can be optimized, or places that are doing well. So like maybe we need to, like an e-commerce company, maybe we need to buy more product, have more product available for this one product, or maybe there's errors in our system, things like that. So I think it's really a consultative role that the data analyst needs to play, and needs to give the business things that are important to them. They're never really going to care how you get to like what the key metric conversion rate is or how many sessions came in. They care more about the bottom line and how can they improve that bottom line by doing things. Since for data analysts, it's mainly on websites. So that's what I like to tell the story by starting with the problem that we're trying to solve, giving that data, and then providing a solution.
Okay.
I see a lot of data analysts skip the solution part. And if you're just defining the problem, giving the data, and then not stopping there, then there's no point. What's the point, right?
Yeah.
I think you really need to dig in and to understand then what is the solution to that problem, or give maybe an array of solutions that can be done.
Yeah. And how much the solution would probably be something high level, right? Because it would be for someone else to figure out how to actually execute it, or do you pretty much get into details of the solution?
I would get into very details.
Got it.
Especially if we're seeing like people are dropping off on, say, a shipping page in a checkout, right? And then you look at a session recording or multiple sessions recordings, and that they're unable to enter a specific zip code, right? So that's the type of data that's invaluable to the business, to say then why is this happening, and to give that then to your development team to have them fix it, right?
Yeah.
The solution doesn't always have to be exactly this is how you fix it, but it's more of identifying like this is what's wrong.
Yeah, very good. That was a good example, by the way. Thank you. Very cool. What is your day-to-day, your job? Is it a lot of creating reports? Is it a lot of meetings? Is it a little bit of everything? I'm curious. I've never been in a full-time analytics person. So what does a full-time analytics person does 9 to 5?
Yeah, so a lot of meetings, as you can imagine, and we use some consulting agencies to do some specific work. A lot of times on the data collection side, but also with specific bigger problems that we might be experiencing, right? And how to solve those. And then making sure that the reports are accurate, data is clean, is a big part. You don't want the CEO to come back and say, hey, this is not right.
Yeah.
And then beyond that is mainly investigations that I do, looking at the site, seeing where it can be improved, seeing what's either up or down, trying to identify the why. A lot of data analytics can tell you what's happening on the site, but understanding the why, you need to have a better understanding of the business.
Yeah.
So did a specific email send out at a different time? Is there a different promotion than you had last year? Things like that. So there's a whole like range of things that can affect someone's behavior.
Yeah, I remember we have a client that they're e-commerce, but they also have stores. And the stores that have Google business profile, and Google business profile it's not part of Google Analytics because it's not a part of the website. And whenever they have a crazy local or just store only type of promotion, we feel like we're losing some traffic to the store. And when we first onboarded them, we were panicking. Oh, what's going on? Is their campaign not working? Whatever. And then when we learned about those promotions, like you mentioned, when you ask, hey, what are you doing in marketing? They're like, oh yeah, our stores are having stores only promotions. I'm like, oh, okay. So people, when they go search, and they go to the stores as opposed to go to e-commerce. Now you're competing against yourself, which is fine. You're going to make the money at the end. But now we know why, because this campaign, the store campaign, impacted the e-commerce conversion rate. So I'm really glad you brought it up, that you have to actually ask and explore the marketing initiatives to see so you have the whole picture. Very cool. How do they get better at analytics? Do you recommend any website? For example, in SEO, we have Moz and SEMrush and Search Engine Land. Yeah. What are some of the websites or institutions, free or paid, you recommend if you want to get better at this stuff?
That's a good question. I personally think that just doing it and being in the tools and learning how to make the data useful to you is the biggest part. Outside of that, there's a few blogs, but not many. That's, I think, an opportunity for someone. to start a more data analysis focused media. I use Medium a lot too. So I guess Simo Ohave is probably the main blog that I look at, and then have a Medium subscription. It's so worth it. There's a ton of data people on Medium there.
I also want to say YouTube. YouTube really came to my rescue during the GA4. So let's just wrap it up. Where can people find you? Where do you work? Do you offer any sort of consulting? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I offer consulting services through Orange Penguin. It's orange-penguin.com. That's my website. And I also work full-time at 1-800-Flowers, doing both types of gigs right now, but definitely would love to work with anyone who's wanting to dive deeper into their data.
Did you say 1-800-Flowers?
Yes, 1-800-Flowers.
Cool. And that's your full-time job, or is that
That's my full-time job. Yeah.
Got it. And then you do consulting on the side. That's awesome. Very cool. So I guess that's it. So let me ask you a couple of I want to conclude this interview with a couple of personal questions, if you don't mind. Not everybody reads these days because we're busy, but if you read, do you recommend any book? Or alternatively, is there a movie or TV show that you recommend for us to look into?
Yeah, so I really love the Silo series. It's on Apple TV right now, but the books are just amazing. They're so much better than TV shows. And then, I think that's the case for most things.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I really would recommend the Silo series of books.
Very cool. So read the book and then watch the TV, or maybe watch the TV and then read the book, or do both.
Either way.
Either way, yeah.
I think you'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
Especially if you love sci-fi.
I do love sci-fi, but I just got to find time to read. So I'll probably watch TV. It's a lot easier that way. And when you're not working, what are you doing? What are some of your hobbies?
So I love curling, and you can usually find me 2 or 3 days of the week at the curling club. That's really where I have a passion for right now, and it's my main hobby. So
that's what keeps you sane after looking at data all day.
Yeah, definitely. Sweeping the stone hard down the ice and delivering it to the broom accurately. So
very cool. And what are some of your personal and professional goals in coming years, especially since everything's changing with AI and everything?
So I don't think that AI is going to affect like you or me in terms of a more experienced person. I worry for people who are just starting out in the industry, and I think AI is going to trample them. I think in terms of my goal, I would like to build my agency a little bit more, get some more clients, and maybe eventually wean myself off of a full-time job.
Yeah, and that's how I started, right? I was working full-time, consulting on the side, and next thing, you don't need a lot of clients to go full-time, right? So you just need a couple of good ones, and then they start asking for other things, and then you got to hire other people to help you, and then next thing you know, you're an agency owner. That's what happened to me. I wasn't even planning to be an agency owner. Eric, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and it was good to connect with you again. We should stay in touch.
Yeah, it was great talking with you, Al, and catching up from the Common Spirit days.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed our talk and wish the best for you and Clarity Digital.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.